Hi. So, chapter 4 was really interesting. I just wanted to share just a couple of the top things that I took away as far as content and skills for coaching in the future. And the first section that was really interesting was indicators, just that someone can be coached in general. And there was 6 of them, and it was accountability, gap, responsibility and ownership, willingness, trust, and honesty. And I loved reading about all of these because so far in our negotiations, we haven't really discussed if someone is even coachable. And one thing, I guess the one that stuck out to me the most was willingness. And in the situations we had one where someone was like aggressive or miscommunicated or didn't have a very good sales record. But we didn't even assess, like, did they want to change? Did they recognize they had an issue? So I think all of these 6 things in the future are just good indicators to know if someone is even going to take your advice and do anything with it. Like if someone doesn't have accountability, if they don't take responsibility for their actions or recognize that they're lacking in something, then it's pointless to coach them because they don't take it seriously that they have an issue. So I love these indicators because I think in the future, that's something we can bring up, is we could say something about accountability, or do they take responsibility for their actions, something to make it more real. And if they do have a negative attitude or don't really take your words for anything, that you can indicate that very quickly. And in a real situation, you would know if they're going to be a valuable employee based off of their responses. And the second thing I really liked was when it talked about change, that really what it said is that change what you do and change how you think. If you're not willing to do either one of those things, then you're not going to progress. It also talked about how basically that we have a really hard time changing, that even if something doesn't work, we try it over and over again because we hate change. When in reality, to do well at sales or school or any job or anything, you have to be open to change. And whenever you do that, you can then advance. So in the same way with a coaching scenario, that if you have someone that doesn't have good numbers or has a very low rate of keeping people on the phone or whatever it is, you have to make sure that they recognize there's a problem and they're willing to change their approach in some way. That if they aren't being successful, to switch that around, you have to recognize that something isn't working and be willing to try even multiple things, changing to see if you can fix the problem. Because if you aren't willing to adjust anything, then you're going to just keep getting negative results. And the last thing that I thought was really interesting was coaching the gap. And this really is just the area that's lacking, is kind of how I envisioned it, is that in any situation where you're going to be coaching someone, it's because there's something lacking. And some of the things that it listed was what people know, so just general knowledge that they maybe don't know or understand, or the resources or skills that they have are lacking, and the results they're getting isn't really what they want to achieve. So in any situation, when someone comes to you with any problem, there's always something that's missing, and you need to recognize that. And it basically says the gap is the existence between where the person wants to be and where they need to be. So if right now you're just someone doing sales and you want to be a sales manager or a team leader, whatever it is, what do you need to do to fill that gap? And when you recognize what your goal is, you can then set out a plan to achieve, XYZ and get to that point. And that's what you need to coach. And then the last thing I wanted to share was just a coach's job in general. And I loved how it said at the end of this chapter was that it kind of explained that a teacher, they're the ones that introduce a new idea to you that you had no idea. And then a trainer can then give you like a foundation and a process, or that's what a teacher or a trainer does, is they introduce something completely new to you. And then as a coach, that's when you just perfect and you show them what to do better. So that's what our job is in this class and in any sales position. If you're a manager and you're helping someone, you're just part of the refining process. That's what you need to have in the back of your mind when you're helping someone, is that you're just trying to make them better. You're trying to fill the gap and help them in whatever situation they're in to be able to progress to whatever goal they're working towards. And the last thing I wanted to share was just in the very last page of this chapter, it just talks about some of the characteristics of effective salespeople. And there was two I really wanted to share that I thought were super interesting. And one of them was that they are creative. And it says the art of selling is the ability to create new solutions and possibilities. I thought about this in terms of coaching in the same way, that to be an effective coach, you have to be able to have different solutions for all different scenarios. That if you go into a meeting with a specific mindset of like, this is what's going to happen, then it's going to be hard to be effective because you don't know the situation or their goals or their gaps that they have. So I think as long as you are creative and very flexible into new possibilities and solutions, then you can be effective. And just the last thing I wanted to share was that another part or another characteristic of being a successful salesperson is to exemplify what their customers want most, which is integrity, honesty. They are resourceful, solution-driven, responsible, reliable. So those type of things, I think that if I was being sold something, those are all qualities that I would want to see from the very beginning. To be honest, to be looking for a solution, to be responsible. All of those things are something that if I'm purchasing something, I want this to be the attitude of the person I'm buying it from. That if I don't feel like they're responsible or reliable, or they aren't trying to help me find a solution, then I'm not very likely to purchase something from them. So I think that's just another thing that we can teach when we are coaching, is that there's 10 of them that are very effective, but I think those two are ones that aren't obvious, that you need to exemplify what your customers want to see, and you need to constantly be trying to think of new solutions and possibilities to meet the customer's needs and not just your own agenda. Thank you.